Your child just isn't normal. They're overweight. In Missouri, they have done that. And we're joined now by Cheli Cerra. She is a school principal and a child success expert. Thanks for being with us.
Hi.
Now, this is happening out in Scott City, Missouri, and the school said, along with sending home, they do the testing of eyesight and hearing. They also tested to see whether the kids were over or underweight because they have about a 20% overweight problem in the school district. But some parents were upset and said it's not the school's place. What do you think?
Well, I think that the school is trying to do something to promote healthy fitness and healthy nutrition, but the way that they went about it, they could have had some educational program to bring parents in and educate them as to what they were doing. I think just sending home a blank form with yes or no, my child's obese or not, could cause some alarm for some parents.
Do you think that most parents have an idea already that their child is overweight and simply don't address it? So perhaps the school thought, look, they haven't gotten the message yet. Maybe they need it, loud and clear?
Well, I'm sure parents do know when their children are having a healthy lifestyle, if they are overweight or not, but the school should have maybe gone about it in a different way. Maybe called those parents in to a one-on-one session with a school counselor to kind of talk about, hey, how can we help you at home? Maybe come up with some healthy choices. This is something that the school needs to kind of work with in cooperation with parents, not just arbitrarily send letters home with facts that parents maybe might construe in a negative way.
Mm-hmm. Is it a school's business? I mean, if you assume, look, the parents are in charge of raising this child, whether or not the kid's over or underweight, it shouldn't be any business of the schools at all.
Well, National Institute of Health has conducted some statistics to say that our children are getting very much overweight. In fact, we are in this decade alone have increased it by 3 times as much. So how can schools help parents? They should educate the kids. They should have healthy snack choices and meal choices at school for them to do, pick healthy lifestyle. Also have good PE programs in place and educate parents as to this, but basically go out and tell the parents, listen, your kids are overweight, and just leave it at that with no extension of this is what we're going to do at school to help you, and maybe this is what you can do at home. That would have been a more positive way to approach the situation.
Well, the school says that they were hoping that by sending out these letters, the parents who got them would seek medical help for their children. Thank you very much, though. We appreciate your time this morning. Cheli Cerra.
Thank you.
Child expert, school principal as well.
In today's Tech Check, addicted to video games. 45 million families in America have a game system, and now researchers saying that could be a good thing, helping your child learn useful skills. With us now, Cheli Cerra, a school principal and child success expert. And I don't know, Cheli, every time I hear video games could be learning instruments, I'm a little bit leery.
Well, they do have a place within the classroom if they enhance and supplement instruction.
Yeah, but then again, you talk about, okay, let's put kids in front of a game console even longer every day. Let's give them 2 hours of game time, 2 hours of homework time on the video console, and they never get outside. And 10 years from now, the kids are even heavier, and we got even bigger problems.
Well, we need to enhance what we're doing within the classroom and take it into real-life learning, especially now in the 21st century. 79% of our children are using or have used learning games, video games, on a daily basis at home. So why not take that and transfer that into what they're learning in school and have them sit in front of the computer learning multiplication tables? There's nothing wrong with that.
But haven't we always known this, Cheli? I mean, back in college, I had friends of mine who could memorize an 18-minute-long hip-hop song word for word and didn't know who the vice president was. We've always known there are ways to get people to effectively learn things. Is it really just a new twist on an old staple?
Well, what we need to do is take it and create simulations where children can read a text, have instruction with the classroom teacher. This is not to supplement, this is not to take the teacher away from the classroom, but it's to supplement instruction. They read about it in the textbook, and then you take it and you create simulated environments where they create part of their lesson, they're interactive, and that's the best way for a child to learn is to become part of their whole learning environment.
We've already proved, though, that these video games, as far as learning, educational video games, they're a tough sell. I mean, you go to these stores like Best Buy, they don't sell. They sit on the shelves. The kids want to play with the consoles. They don't want to learn from them. So it's kind of tough to force your kid to be studious while he's got a joystick in his hand or her hand.
Right, but let me tell you, a lot of school districts do have companies such as Compass Learning that supplement the curriculum with game-based educational video games. They need to be educational, they need to be interactive, they need to be nonviolent, and they need to be engaging and age appropriate so that our children can learn.
You know, it says these games teach skills like analytical thinking, multitasking, problem solving, team building. Doesn't Little League do that, or Pop Warner do that? I mean, can't we get the kids outside and do the same thing than keep them inside with the video games?
Absolutely. We're not telling you not to take your kids outside and compete in team sports and be physically fit outside in the outdoors. This is just another way to engage our children with what they are learning in the classroom. Can you imagine a parent having to come home every single night and asking their student 3, 4, 5 times to go and do their homework? If we present video games interactively and stimulating them, same thing that they're learning in the classroom, now at home, they're going to run home, get on that computer, and do their homework without a parent having to ask them once.
10 seconds, Cheli. Who teaches the teachers how to use these things?
Good point. The teachers need to learn how to incorporate it within their lesson plans and within their curriculum in the schools. We can have outside companies come in. The school principal can be one that can assist teachers to teach them how to best incorporate this as another learning resource. This is just another learning resource that we bring into our classrooms as a supplement to enhancing education.
Cheli, Cerra. Cheli, thank you very much.
Shots fired in a Washington State high school, and a student is dead. Police say they have the killer, but that might be little comfort to the students, wondering if they're really safe at their own school. So what can teachers and parents do to prevent this kind of tragedy in the future? Cheli Cerra is a school principal and a child success specialist. Cheli, a lot of kids hear about stuff like that, and they start thinking, well, could that kind of thing happen in my school? What do you tell them if you're a parent? Because it could, couldn't it?
Absolutely. Parents need to keep lines of communication open and talk to their kids about how they're feeling. And schools need to also have the same venues for them to do so.
So communication is the key. I mean, you don't want to pretend like this kind of thing can't happen.
Well, you have to be proactive. Schools do have in place safety plans and crisis plans that they should share with parents and students. They have fire drills, safety drills, in case a tragedy like this should happen. But most importantly, we need to make sure that we have situations in place for children that feel that they are in crisis to reach out.
You know, I have a fairly broad age range among my kids, but my 10-year-old, she's a big question asker. She just goes on and on and on, and sometimes I just feel like, you know, I'm overloading her with information. Since I'm in the news business, I'm supposed to know it all. What do I tell her?
Right. Well, you need to keep it age appropriate. For instance, if she's 10, you're not going to go into graphic details with her. You're going to talk to her about her concerns and listen, and also talk to her in terms where she's going to understand. What we need to make sure is that kids that are in crisis, there are ways for them to reach out for help. Many kids that go and do these horrible things, they've been in crisis for a while. They've been bullied, harassed. Maybe no one's listened to their cries of help, and that's why this happens.
You talked about the schools being proactive. You know, you're a principal yourself, as we mentioned. How are we supposed to allow children to get an education without turning schools into armed fortresses with barbed wire and metal detectors everywhere?
Well, schools still are the safest places. Less than 1% of homicides have occurred in schools. Now, that is 1% too many, I agree. What we need to do is put curricular programs in place for kids to be able to handle stress and anger management issues. We also need to let kids know that they are safe in schools and provide avenues for them if they feel that they are being harassed or bullied, for them to immediately let an adult know so that it is immediately taken care of and it doesn't go another step further.
Are you aware of any common themes among the school shooters that we've seen in the last decade or so? I mean, is there any one thing that authorities, school administrators can point to and say, you know, that is something that school shooters exhibit?
Yes. Many times, many of the boys and girls within the school know that the action is going to take place. These are things that they plan, they initiate. It doesn't happen overnight. They are being bullied or harassed, or they feel that they are outcasts, and therefore they feel that they just don't belong in society. And because they have not gotten help, it turns to this. Now, parents also need to step up to the plate and be aware of what's going on with their children as well.
Cheli, Cerra, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See a pattern, one of those stories there. Look at online and on TV, attention going to the Miss USA story. You know, the Miss USA website says that the competitors are all, quote, savvy and goal-oriented women who seek to improve the lives of others. We found this, though, on another website. This is Miss Nevada playing tonsil hockey, competing now for the Miss USA title next year. Not exactly model behavior there. Cheli Cerra is with me, school principal and child success expert. What do you make of this when these pictures get out there?
Well, I make that parents have to be their child's role models, and they have to chaperone, set limits, and be watchful of what's going on.
Not only watchful, but everybody's watching now, Cheli. I mean,
Yeah,
you think about technology these days. Tara Conner stood up there with Donald Trump 2 days ago and said, here we go with more tonsil hockey on TV. And got up there and said she did not realize how many people were watching her every move. Cell phone cameras, video on a cell phone. You've been warned.
Parents need to let kids know today that nothing is private, that they have to be very careful, especially if children are going to be going into the media or they're going to be doing things that are going to bring mass appeal into their lives. They have to be very careful of how they conduct themselves, because it can come back to hurt them in the future.
You know what, I think about places like MySpace.com, where the teenagers at a young age are doing their own profile online. All that stuff can come back to bite you later in life when you're trying to look for a job, because employers can go back and find that. Have you thought about that?
Yes, it totally can, and that's why it's very important for parents to use these opportunities as lessons. They need to talk to their kids and listen to what they have to say and kind of guide them in the right direction. There's some shocking statistics out there.
Yeah.
With,
go ahead, I don't want to stop you there. Go ahead, finish that.
No, there's some shocking statistics,
like
and
what?
Parents need to keep a watchful eye on their kids. Well, when I did some research with my staff, we found that kids start drinking at the age of 13, and that leads into a life later on of adulthood if drug and alcohol, if parents aren't monitoring what they're doing. So they have to be on top of what's going on.
A lesson learned for a lot of folks. Sometimes too late, too, unfortunately. Cheli Cerra, thank you for your time in Miami.
Thanks.
Well, here's some food for thought, we could say. Ever try concentrating on your work when you're really, really hungry, you haven't had lunch, you try to ignore your hunger pains? It's hard to do when your stomach is growling. Well, the same goes for students. In some high schools, though, the lunch period is, you might say, moving to the back of the class. Kids are not really taking time to eat because their class schedule is so crammed. Cheli Cerra is a school principal in Miami, Florida, and joins us now. Cheli, you know, one recent article that was written about this, the teacher said that she was so concerned about these kids because they just weren't concentrating. She couldn't quite figure out why. They'd get to her class and would be tired, couldn't focus. How big of a problem is it, and is it widespread?
It is a big problem, especially when you're talking about children that are in high school. The competition is fierce to get into college. You have state tests going, and they're going to skip lunch if the teacher offers them extra tutoring or extracurricular activities to enhance their academic day. My concern is that 25 million of our children are overweight already, and if they're skipping lunch, this leads to overeating candy bars and junk food to compensate for that healthy nutrition they should be getting.
Yeah, I suppose that, you know, the tendency is to just grab something quick as you're running into your class or your science lab or something like that. And does it have to be a full lunch period? I mean, would there be a way to work it out in kids' days these days where they could do it for 20 minutes, something like that?
Well, actually, according to the American Diabetic Association, 20 minutes of a lunch period is enough for a child to get a healthy, nutritious meal. Now, schools need to look at ways to offer this before school, after school, maybe even on Saturdays, so that children definitely need to have lunch. They should not cut into the child's lunch. In fact, type 2 diabetes in our children has increased 10 times over the last 10 years. So this also contributes to our children not eating.
You know, Cheli, one principal in New York, they have a system in his school where once a week, usually they'll have a science lab and they miss their lunch. And he said he's been there for 7 years, never had a complaint about it, that students just doesn't seem to bother them.
Well, you have peer pressure, you have competition, you have competitiveness, and children, you know, they might conversate amongst each others, but they won't go to the administration to say. And this is something that parents have to keep in mind, you know, be on top of your child and make sure that they're eating healthy every single day.
You know, what other people might say is that this is preparing those kids for the real world of when the competition is very intense in college and onto the workplace, and a lot of people just don't have time for lunch in the workplace these days.
That's unfortunate, and that's why our society is not as healthy as it should be.
Cheli Cerra,
so we need to make sure.
Is a school principal in Miami. Sorry for the satellite delay there, Cheli. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
3 deadly school shooting incidents in just 2 weeks, not to mention close to a dozen school lockdowns. Yesterday on Studio B, one Wisconsin lawmaker said arming teachers is the answer to school safety.
No way is this a proposal that they'd be openly displaying guns, wearing them on their hips. I would think that in the schools what will happen is they'll be under lock and key. That way it'll be safe, and you'd only go and get it if there was an armed intruder. I've heard a variety of different things, and that we would have protocols in place so that they'd only get that gun out in case of armed intruder where they're trying to hurt our kids, and they could defend themselves and the children in the schools. Otherwise, kids are just a sitting duck.
Teachers packing heat. Seriously. Joining us now, Cheli, Cerra, school principal and child success expert. And your gut reaction to teachers with guns?
Absolutely not. No way.
I mean, well, you've got to have all options on the table, do you not? I mean, I know it seems extreme, Cheli, but don't you at least have to look at pretty much everything because school violence seems to be on the rise again?
Again, it is, but we need to be proactive and not reactive. And by having teachers carry guns or having guns available in the school, we are being reactive. What we need to do is form partnerships, educate, and communicate.
What about the other theory? What about the Flight 93 theory, Cheli, that says that we should teach teachers and teach students to fight back, to, in fact, gang up on some kid or some gunman who walks into their school? It seems like a fair assessment to me.
It is not. School should be a place for learning, and learning, it needs to stay that way.
Well, sure, but the learning tends to stop, Cheli, when a guy walks in with a gun. The learning stops right there, and these kids that may lose their lives, it would seem to me that an effective way to maintain or keep their lives would be to fight back. If the kids had fought back in Columbine, then some might still be alive today. Instead, they just sat there and they prayed, and certainly, you know, it seems to me that all options in this case should be looked at.
We need to be proactive. We need to establish a partnership. We need to have parent patrols. We need to have staff walking the hallways, safety checks for any visitor that comes on campus. Those are things that need to be done. Security clearance, and also having people in the community helping the schools. That's the only way that we're going to try and stop these terrible things.
I think everybody agrees with that. I think everybody says there should be a lot more diligence looking at the schools and how to protect them. My question is kind of based on once somebody gets inside the school, and clearly it's happening more recently now than it has in the past 10 years or past 7 years since Columbine. It's happening now. What do we do? What do we teach the teachers once somebody gets inside?
Great question. We need to have a safety plan, and that safety plan needs to be conveyed to the students, the staff, and the community. Is your school safe? I have a safety checklist on my website, which is eduville.com. And what that means is that there are certain things that you need to do to ensure safety from within and also from coming in from the outside.
Are we as a country kind of overreacting to all of these shootings? I mean, considering the fact that really the odds of being shot in school are still 1 in 6 million. The odds of being hit and killed by lightning are much better than being shot in school. So do we need to take a step back and say, okay, well, let's look at this, but let's look at this earnestly and let's look at this thing reasonably?
Statistically, schools are still the safest places for our children, but there is a problem in this country, and what we need to do is educate, like I said, and communicate. We need to have programs for students who are going through some emotional problems that we can immediately take care of those needs. We need to have parents alert the school if they get some kind of a message that something is going to happen. Teachers, community leaders also need to step in and help the schools and help those principals come up with a safety plan.
Cheli, Cerra. Cheli, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.